Yeah, so today so the main topic of this presentation will be the topic of password reuse, but also general statistics on passwords. So first, my agenda. So first, I motivate the topic. So what's the main problem? Why do we do this analysis? What kind of data do we use for the analysis? Some general statistics on the data. Afterwards, like more concrete statistics on the topic of password reuse. And in the last part, we show how we can use this knowledge to show that password cracking can be even more improved because of password reuse. And in the end, we come to a conclusion. So first of all, like the general problems of leaks, database leaks, identity leaks, however you call them. So this graph shows you like how many identities are usually leaked every month on the internet. And so publicly leaked, everybody can access them, everybody can download them. And so I think in median, there are like 5 million identities leaked per month. So what's the problem of these leaks? So usually the people that are affected by them, so the users that are in these database dumps, they don't know that the data has been leaked. And so because not all the leaks are reported in the media, only the very big ones. And even the big ones, not everybody cares about the news. They will only realize if their accounts are actually compromised and and their money is stolen or their identity is stolen, something like this. And so the cyber criminals, they can use this easily. So they use the fact that people don't know, and they have a lot of time or a big time frame where they can misuse the data until the victims actually realize what has happened. Okay, so for this general problem, we have created a service for people to warn the people about identity leaks. Because we started this project with the Adobe leak in 2013, and we were interested how many people from our faculty are actually affected by this Adobe leak. And so we wanted to know which people we have to warn in our faculty about these leaks. And so this is the start of our service. So when we saw that, okay, now it didn't stop with Adobe, so there were more leaks coming. And we incorporated this into the service and made it accessible to everyone. So this is the service. So you can go to this webpage, sec.hbi.de, type in your email, and then you will see whether you are affected by an identity leak. For now, so we started the service in May 2014. Until then, 2.7 million people have requested our service. And from these 2.7 million, 270,000 people were actually affected by one or the other leak. So this is like 10% of the people are affected. Altogether now, we have 2.5 billion credentials in this service, which currently are from 70 different database leaks. And so at the moment, we are also collecting other leaks automatically, for example, from Pastebin or from other forums or web pages. And altogether now, we have more than 20,000 leaks. But it's really hard to incorporate into the service because it requires some manual verification about us data. Okay, so based on this service, we had the ability to actually have access to this data and to do some tests on this. Okay, now to the problem of password reuse. So there was an interesting report from Verizon in 2016 where they said that 63% of all confirmed data breaches are because of the wrong use of passwords. So this includes password reuse, that passwords have been stolen, so also some kind of reuse, or the usage of default passwords. If we look at some of the biggest data leaks that have happened this year, Dropbox and LinkedIn. So there it's known or not known, but like they assume that these data leaks only happened because of password reuse. So in the case of Dropbox, they assume that one employee actually was hacked or their credentials were leaked. So this employee's credentials were leaked somewhere in another leak. And these credentials were then used to access the Dropbox of this employee. And in this Dropbox, there were more information where the attackers were able to access the database of Dropbox. And this again led to another data leak, which can then again be used to compromise more databases. Same for LinkedIn. Another example for this, how password reuse actually affects us. So after this LinkedIn leak and MySpace leak, which happened this year, we saw that on Twitter or many social networks, like accounts from prominent people were taken over because they used or reused their passwords from the MySpace leak. So some examples, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, Katy Perry, David Guetta, so all their accounts were taken over. And the general problem of this reuse is everybody talks about it, everybody knows that this is a general problem, but there's no real comprehensive study on this or like on a big data set. So it's just an assumption that this is a big problem, and we wanted to confirm this in our study. So our goal is to, based on the huge data set we have for our service anyhow, to create a study based on real password or real world password data. So the advantage we have is that for our service we have to normalize the leaks in a way. So we have to know at which position in the database leaks the emails are stored that we can then hash and like make accessible of our web page for querying. And we know where the passwords are positioned in the leaks, so that we know whether a user is actually affected by a leaked passwords or not. And so this normalization we can already use for further analysis. Okay, here you see a list of leaks we actually incorporated into our study. So at the point we did the study, like not all the currently known database leaks were actually publicly accessible. So for example, Dropbox, which is not part of this. So altogether, we analyzed 31 different leaks. From there, 21 databases, it's sure that they came from database dumps. And 10 other leaks, it's not known where they come from. These are just collections of credentials. And so it's quite sure that these passwords do not come from the service, but were collected otherwise. So what's quite typical is that people try to take a big database already, then try these credentials on a different site. For example, this was the case, or probably the case for Twitter. So they tried credentials on Twitter, and when they saw that there was a successful login, they collected this into a big database, and then published this database of like successful login as Twitter database. But this is not the database of Twitter, but these are just valid credentials for Twitter. And so for the password reuse, you can only use these 21 leaks because there you really know that they are not a product of password reuse. Altogether, these 31 different leaks, they have 995 million credentials altogether. And among these credentials, there are 884 million distinct email addresses in it. From these 884 million, there are 68 million addresses that have an account at least in 2 of these leaks. So these 68 million addresses actually qualify for analysis on the password reuse. Okay, some general statistics so on the data we collected. So we had a look at the password routines that we used in them. And so on the very right side, you see the dumps, so the 21 I just mentioned. So this is the one that we have to take into account, not the number of leaks. So there you see that 62% of the data leaks actually store their password insecurely. This means either clear text, MD5, or SHA-1. So because MD5 and SHA-1, it's pretty easy to look it up in the internet and find the right password behind it. So, yeah. Only 30% of the databases use more secure mechanisms, like combining MD5 and SHA-1 with a salt, but still it's possible to recover a large amount of passwords for these routines. And only one service actually used a secure password storing mechanism, which is really scary. Okay, so when we look at the passwords that were included, so this didn't only contain clear text passwords, but also hashed passwords, as we just saw. And so around 50% of the passwords were actually password hashes. And because we cannot compare or we cannot use this data for the password reuse or general password analysis, we looked into common ways on how to get from the hashes to the password. And so here are 4 main methods we have used. So first of all, you can use rainbow tables, larger rainbow tables for looking up passwords. But this is only possible for passwords that happen really often, because it's a really time-consuming task to look up the hashes in a rainbow table. Also for passwords that you find quite often, you could use Google to look them up. So because many people already try to recover passwords from hashes. And if you just type in a hash on Google, you will find the clear text passwords in many cases. For the majority of the passwords, you can come to hash cracking web pages. So there are web pages where this community is cracking passwords basically the whole day. And they are distributing the cracked passwords in the forums. And this you can download and then compare it to the hashes you have. So in this case, for many larger leaks, you find huge listings of all the cracked passwords in it. So for example, for MySpace, I think up to now, 99 or even more of the passwords have been cracked, 99%. Okay. Yeah, and what we also did is for passwords, for a hashed email address, where there was one clear text password at least, we tried this clear text password also for the hashed variants of the same hashed email. So this allows us to better conclude the password reuse. Okay, so this is the number of, or the percentages shown, and also the number of clear text passwords for each of the leaks we could recover by these methods. So altogether, we were able to recover 85% of all the passwords in clear text. Altogether, this is 848 million credentials in clear text. And altogether, this covers 320 million different passwords. Okay, so now we have the clear text passwords. And now we did different analysis on it. So first of all, the length analysis. We did this for the distinct passwords and the individual passwords. So individual means a password, if one password was used by 10 users, then the distinct would be 1 time, and the individual one would be 10 times. So and there you see the majority of passwords is actually in the range of 8, character length 8. And the reason for this is that at the moment still the recommendation for an optimal password is 8 characters, which we know is not the best recommendation, but this is probably what many users think is right. So they exactly take 8 characters as their length. For the character distribution of these passwords, we see that 56% of the passwords are actually alphanumerical. And so this you can see on the left side, you see which character classes are included in a password. And on the right side, you see which sequence of character classes appear in the password. And so that's quite interesting that 39% of all the passwords are actually alphas followed by digits. So the typical password 1 or password 123. Okay, like the top passwords, not so interesting, so or nothing so new. You see that many of the passwords are actually going back to keyboard walks or some sort of keyboard walk, and so all this is like quite easy to or like draw a line on the keyboard, except phrases like password and I love you. Okay, for the password reuse, coming now to this topic, we use two approaches to look at this. One is to find identical passwords that are used among one email and similar passwords. Because we know that some users are advanced and don't only use the identical password, but like use, for example, the current year at the end. So that we also wanted to cover in some way, and that we also consider the similar passwords. For the password similarity, we use the Levenstein distance, which is like the easiest to calculate and still like gives a proper value where you can work with. So this Levenstein distance basically shows you how many modifications have been done on the passwords, how many insertions, deletions, and substitutions have been applied on the password. So here on the right, you see an example for this password and password 1, where the S has been replaced by a $, and the O replaced by 0. And here the distance will be 4. And if you take this number and divide it by the maximum length of the password, you receive a relative scoring for this distance. So this means a password that's 100% identical has a score of 100% or 1, and a password of length 10 where 3 characters have been modified has a score of 70% or 0.7. Okay, and so because there are some users which are available in like multiple sites, 5, 6, 7 sites, we had to find a way to find passwords or clusters of passwords which are similar. Because it might be that some users use multiple passwords for different sites, and these clusters of passwords we want to detect. So that's why we use graphs for this, or weighted graphs in this case. In this case, the nodes of the graph are a password with its source, and the edges of two passwords or of two password nodes indicate the similarity or the Levenstein or the relative Levenstein distance. And to find similar and identical passwords, we basically put a mask on this graph where we say, okay, now give us all the subgraphs where each of the nodes are, all of the nodes are connected with an edge that is at least over a certain threshold. So for identical passwords, this threshold would be 1.0 or 100%. And for the similarity, we show the value of 70%. So there we said the value must be larger or equal to 70%. So finding these clusters can be done like with typical graph algorithms, finding clicks in the graph. Okay, so based on these 68 million email addresses we have analyzed that have at least 2 credentials, we found out that for identical passwords, so for a similarity score of 100%, 20% of the users on average use identical credentials over multiple pages. So and 60,000 users from this 68 million actually use the same password over more than 4 sources. For similar passwords, so with a similarity score of 70%, it's 27% of the users. Okay, now a more detailed overview of the similarities. So what we did is, because this is like a general score, like a average score, this 20%. And so we know that some pages have much higher reuse scores actually. So that's why we compared each source with each source. And so what's quite interesting, so I marked a few here, which can be combined to a certain cluster of websites. And the blue one, which is Chinese sites, and the red one for dating sites. And if you see the similarity scores there, for Chinese, for example, you see that there is 61 to, or even 70% of password reuse for Chinese sites. And also for dating sites, there are much higher reuse rates than the typical 20%. They're like 45%, 42%, 40%. So that's quite scary, actually. All right. Yeah, another analysis we did is based on the regional passwords. So when we analyzed the passwords, we also extracted the top-level domain from the emails and like did a listing for unique passwords for top-level domains. So basically, we calculated the top 1,000, the general top 1,000 passwords, and extracted from the regional ones, extracted the top 1,000 from these, and in the end, there were only the ones that are really specific to the country. And yeah, what's quite interesting, so for UK, that there are the football clubs, certain names that are typical for the country. For the German one, that there's like the keyboard layout you can see. Yeah. So maybe one or like a few specifics on Chinese and Russian passwords. What you can see is, so Russian and Chinese passwords have a lot of numbers in it. And for Russians, what we can observe is that basically the Russians have their Cyrillic keyboard in front of them, typing their like Cyrillic passwords on it, but in the computer they have the US keyboard layout selected. So when they type their password, in the end a few like random characters appear because like the mapping is completely different. And if you see the password or the top passwords of Russian users, you will think that these are random character strings. They don't make any sense. But if you know this fact, then you know what password is behind it. For Chinese ones, what they have, so you see here like 5201314. This is actually if you pronounce password, or if you pronounce numbers in or these numbers in Chinese, it sounds like something I love you, or like you are my only one, and yeah. So these are like love-related passwords. Same as this Waini. Okay, based on this knowledge, and I told you that there's one leak which actually used strong password hashes. This was the Ashley Madison leak, which has bcrypt with a cost factor of 12. And what this means is, if you try to brute force bcrypt, you will have like rates of around 10 to 100 calculated hashes per second, which is extremely slow. And so this means if you want to only like to check the top 100 against Ashley Madison, this can take maybe multiple years. And yeah, so this is not really reasonable to crack passwords in the traditional manner for Ashley Madison. And there was one article by the Cynosure team who tried to attack these hashes. And what they did, they used a weakness in this leak. So Ashley Madison, in some older times, they stored some passwords in MD5 or in a modified MD5 version. So they lowercased all the passwords and calculated the MD5 password from it. And so to find out the real password, you basically have to try all the variations. Because it was lowercase, you have to try all the variations with uppercases to find the real password. because in the new version, they accounted for the casing, so they did in lowercase. And so first they cracked the MD5 hashes with the lowercase version, and then tried all the uppercase variations with bcrypt. So like for some password, like if you say, so this means for each password, you have to only check a few passwords in bcrypt in the end. So in using this approach, they were able to recover 2.1 million passwords from this leak. Okay, what we tried now is, so based on the leaks we have already and the cleartext passwords we had already, we tried to, like for the users that were stored in Ashley Madison, to find passwords in other leaks, and checked whether this password is actually the same as the one that was stored in bcrypt. And yeah, using this approach, we were able to recover 2.9 million passwords only in a few hours, because we only had to check more or less 2 or 3 passwords for each of these users, and yeah, if there was a match, then we immediately see the result. And this also shows that password reuse does not even protect against like strong cryptography or strong password hashes. You still have to use different credentials for different sites, even if they securely store their passwords. Okay, like our conclusion. So we have provided a password study that's basically working on a few hundred millions of passwords. Yeah, the main topic or the main focus here was the topic of password reuse, because it's like a myth, everybody talks about it, but nobody knows the real numbers from it. And we found out that on average 20% of the users reuse their passwords, 27 use similar passwords, and similar sites even have much higher rates than this. Yeah, password reuse is a serious problem, and even if you use strong hashing, it doesn't help you for the security of your password. And people should really care about using different passwords on different web pages. Okay. That's it for the presentation.